I didn't grow up rich at all. I was raised by a strong woman who worked day and night to provide. So, of course, I didn't mind working as a waitress. I took pride in it, in fact. I started at a diner, and then a friend recommended me to the restaurant he worked at. This really fancy place, with chandeliers and all that jazz. It didn't take me long to get used to working there. Some coworkers even said I looked like I was ice skating the way I moved so fluidly from table to table and with a smile on my face. At first, my boss wanted to see how I worked with customers and stuff, but when she saw that I got great tips, she gave me my own section of the restaurant to supervise. While working, I started noticing a man who was always there. He always wore a suit and ordered expensive things, so I figured he was rich. Whenever he was there, my coworkers told me he wanted them to switch with me so I'd be his waitress, but I always said I was busy with my section. One day, he put a napkin on my tray when I was walking by. I didn't notice at first, but he had written his number on it. I wasn't interested in some stuck-up rich boy, so I threw it in the trash. The guy didn't go to the restaurant for a few days after that. I only saw him again after one of my shifts. It was my turn to lock up, and when I turned towards the street, I saw a flashy convertible and the tall man standing by it. "I have a business proposition for you," he said, taking off his sunglasses, which were ridiculous given that the sun had gone down hours ago. I appreciated that he went straight to the point at least. "What can I do for you, sir?" I asked with my customer service voice. He explained that his parents were constantly on him to date or get married, so he wanted me to pose as his girlfriend for a while at parties and other events. "Why don't you think about it and give me a call, gorgeous?" he asked before giving me his number and driving off, but not before saying, "And call me Simon." I stood stunned for a second and then walked to the bus stop. I paced in my living room, which was also my bedroom, dining room, and kitchen. It almost sounded too good to be true, but I did need the money if I wanted to pay my rent. I decided to throw caution to the wind and give him a call. "Great," he said when I accepted his offer. "The first party is tonight. I'll pick you up at 11. After that, he hung up. I started freaking out. I didn't have anything to wear. No, literally, all I had were jeans and t-shirts. I was pretty sure they wore gowns at these parties. I was rummaging through my closet when there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find an old man who looked like a butler. He handed me a large box and left. I opened it on my bed and saw a beautiful dress, along with some high heels. I put them on and the doorbell rang around 10 minutes after my makeup was done, meaning Simon was downstairs. Simon drove me to this huge mansion with lights everywhere and classical music playing. It wasn't like any party I had ever been to. Simon placed my hand on his arm and whispered, "We're supposed to be a couple, remember?" in my ear, to which I nodded and then put on a charming smile. He went around introducing me to some people, including his friends, whom I had seen with him in the restaurant. None of them recognized me though, because Simon was the only one who knew me. "This is Kyla," said Simon. "She's my girlfriend." Some people fake applauded when he said that, joking that he had finally been tamed. When we sat down to dinner, I was flustered. You know those scenes in movies where they sit down to eat, but the main character doesn't know which knife and fork to use? That was me in that moment, but thankfully Simon noticed, and when he pulled my chair back, he whispered, "Work from the outside in," into my ear, and then passed it off as a kiss on my cheek. I was grateful. He spared me from being embarrassed in front of these people. Sometimes during dinner, he'd turn to me and chat with me, holding my hand occasionally. "You're a good actor," I whispered to him, to which he chuckled. After dinner, everyone dispersed. Some people sitting down to talk and some dancing on the back patio. Simon grabbed my hand and we danced for a while. He was great at it, but his shoulders suddenly stiffened and his expression changed. He grabbed my hand again and pulled me off the dance floor. "What are we running from?" I whispered urgently, but he told me to hush. When we got to the car, he explained, "My parents walked in. I want them to hear about you before meeting you," he said as we drove away. He drove me home and said he'd call in a few days. I was relieved because I don't think I could handle another party like that for at least a week. I saw Simon again 3 days later, just as I was heading off to work. He was leaning on his car and he said, "Let's go. I have a lot planned." "I have work," I said. "I can't do anything else today." Simon then explained that he knew the owner of the restaurant and had them give me the day off. I told him that if I got fired, he'd have to pay my salary, to which he smiled and said, "Deal." We went shopping that day. He took me to a bunch of stores and had me try different styles on for him. He even took me to a salon to have my hair and nails done, something I didn't usually have the money for. After that, we stopped for ice cream. While sharing a banana split, we discussed the upcoming events and what he had in mind. He took me to roughly 3 parties and events a week, only letting his parents catch glimpses of me and stirring up gossip himself so they'd hear of me. He took me to a fashion show where he made me wear a ridiculously huge hat so they wouldn't see my face, so he'd be kissing my hand or putting his arm around me, but all they saw was my shape. He figured out many different ways of keeping me hidden, but then he asked me to actually meet them. I don't think I can, Simon, I said, already feeling a pit in my stomach. It doesn't matter what they think, though, he said, because we're not actually dating. And he was right. That was enough to calm me. For about 20 minutes. I was supposed to meet Simon's parents over lunch at their country club, but what he didn't tell me was that his parents decided to invite the entire family. He apologized, saying, "I didn't know, but I was a mess. I was visibly shaking when I met everyone because they were so intimidating." His parents never smiled, and his cousins all had little kids running around, which made me anxious. The worst was when a little boy smeared ketchup all over my dress, and then another kid put a slice of cake on my chair. So I sat in it and ruined my dress. I was humiliated. I could tell they were all making fun of me. I started tearing up, and when Simon saw it, he pulled me out of there without a single word to his parents. He drove me home and respected that I didn't want to talk, but a few days later he asked me to meet him at a cafe. We sat in a booth and he whipped out 2 plane tickets. He had a huge smile on his face, and when I saw the exotic destination on the tickets, so did I. I could take my friend Jackie. She'd love to go, I said excitedly, but my face faded when I saw that Simon's did first. "Well, they're meant to be for you and me, but," he murmured, and I felt so bad. "No, yeah, that's great," I corrected it quickly. "I'd love to go with you. We're gonna have so much fun." And at that, he finally smiled. I forgot how much I hate flying. It's not that I'm scared of planes, it's that I'm a mess at airports. I'm always running around, dropping everything and losing everything, which always stresses me out so much, but even more so when the person I'm traveling with is cool as a cucumber and travels in style, like Simon. While I was struggling to keep my duffel bag on my shoulder without dropping everything in my hands, he was sipping some coffee and dragging his stylish little suitcase behind him. When we arrived at the gate, he stood up suddenly. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Oh, I get to board earlier," he said before adding, "'cause, first class." He walked away looking smug while I sat mouth agape. When economy could board, I made sure my duffel bag hit him square on the forehead before heading to my seat near the back. When we finally got to the hotel after our long journey, can you believe Simon tried to pretend the hotel made a mistake with our rooms? We were supposed to have separate rooms, but instead we got a honeymoon suite. I even saw him giving the man at the lobby an extra $100 to pretend it was a mistake. I slept on the couch, of course, and let Sleeping Beauty have the bed. He spent the entire vacation trying to get me to do activities. I politely declined to a lot of them, but he got so mopey that I gave in. The vacation ended with a romantic dinner, which he also pretended was a mistake, but I saw the grin on his face. After dessert, he slid his hand over mine and leaned over the table to kiss me. I found myself kissing him back, surprisingly. Suddenly, I was all giddy, though not more than him. I guess sometime along the flight back home, we just became a couple. On the flight back, he upgraded my ticket to first class and right next to him, but I made him regret it with my snoring when I slept and crying when I watched a sappy movie. "Come on, we always go to your place," I pleaded with him when he picked me up to hang out. I wanted him to come up to my apartment because we always went to his and I felt foreign there. "Ugh, fine." He finally accepted defeat. I beamed and ran upstairs with him right behind me. I made popcorn while he put on a movie and we sat on the couch. "Oh, let me get you something to drink," I said, disappearing into the kitchen, or more like towards the kitchen, since my apartment was tiny and it was basically just one room. I came back not 2 minutes later with our drinks. He downed it pretty quickly, saying it tasted great. In about 5 minutes, he was out cold, and I could finally let out a sigh of relief. I quickly took his drink from him and carried him to a chair. I tied him with the rope I stashed under the couch and then duct-taped his mouth. I had some time before he woke back up, so I went to change out of the stupid clothes he bought me and into my regular work gear. All black, of course. Earlier than I had hoped, Simon woke up. He started kicking and trying to scream, but he couldn't move and his screams were muffled. "Hey there, sorry about all of this," I said. "It's nothing personal, just business." I ruffled his hair. He was still trying to say something. I told him I'd take the duct tape off if he promised not to scream, and he nodded. "How could you do this to me, Kyla? I thought you loved me," he said with lots of hurt in his voice. "I never said I loved you. Ever," I stated. "Look, your father has some enemies. They want to have leverage with him," I then explained. He started pleading with me to let him go. He said he knew I felt something for him. that this was not the me he knew. Not gonna lie, I was close to letting him go, but then I heard a car pull up downstairs. I snapped out of it and put the duct tape back on his mouth. Two men walked in, carrying a large cardboard box. One of them handed me a thick envelope, while the other lifted Simon and the chair into the box and sealed it. I hesitated, but then gave in and asked, "You won't hurt him, right?" One of the men chuckled and responded, "The more we hurt him, the less his old man is willing to bargain. So no, pretty boy will stay pretty." They left as soon as they came, and my apartment felt empty. It was only a temporary apartment, though. I called my boss and put her on speaker while I sat on the bed counting the money in the envelope. "Yo, boss," I said. "It's done. When's my next assignment?" And with that, I moved on, like I always do. This one kinda hurt, but nothing I haven't done before, and won't do again.